we looked to work with finding what was the best way to work with parents of children who were newly diagnosed with autism. So this is a very difficult time in families' lives. These children don't have an obvious disability at birth, perhaps like a child who might be born with a congenital condition, but it's something that becomes more obvious over time, often by the time they're 2 or 3 years of age. So our funding let us experiment really with some interventions that were based at home. So we had two arms to our intervention. One was to work with parents through workshops for parents within a few months of diagnosis, and the beauty of that was that we brought mums and dads in together over a weekend as couples to do a 2-day workshop about the diagnosis, what it means to them, their little person, decision making around what interventions they might follow, etc. But also to look at some practical ways they could start working with their child here and now, straight away. Because one of the biggest things our research showed was that many families sat on a waiting list at a public or a private service for quite some time, sometimes up to 18 months before they actually had somebody who would work one-on-one with their child. So there's a real urgent need to help parents who are worried, have a diagnosis and then are waiting for what seems like an eternity. So practical strategies they could do at home became very important for us. So the workshop started them on that journey of looking at that, doing some goal setting for them and their families, and then we had facilitators that we call in-home facilitators that went out over 10 sessions over the next 6 to 8 weeks and started to look at implementing strategies around the goals they set at home. So our research really showed that the workshops made a difference, that they certainly increased parents' knowledge about autism and helped them to start feeling a bit more confident about what they can do. So it helps to empower them really to work with their child every day, but also introduce them to other parents in the same boat, and that's often something, particularly for the fathers, that they have never talked to anyone at work about their child. Usually a boy with autism, it was a real taboo topic, and here they had other dads to talk to, and I think some of the most gratifying things we found was the difference it made to fathers. And certainly when we look at the quantitative data that we collected using questionnaires and so forth, the fathers' efficacy increased enormously through even just the 2-day workshop, and then it got boosted again after the in-home facilitation. So we were able to show that we could decrease parenting stress and increase parenting competence by a relatively short, intense information provision, with mums and dads getting that information together, and then some in-home facilitation. We also went on to develop a DVD with a lot of the workshop content that we then did a small study where some parents received the DVD and worked through that at home, and others received the same information face-to-face. And not surprisingly, the people who had the face-to-face with that social interaction with other parents, etc., reported much higher levels of satisfaction than the parents who got that information just through, although the information is the same, who got it through the DVD. But for families that are isolated in regional or rural contexts, getting good information that they can work through with some phone contact with someone is better than no information at all. So that's one example of funded research that looked at early service provision and that we've been able to publish, and then subsequently one of the publishers asked us to write a book for professionals on what those strategies were, how you work with parents at that early stage of diagnosis. So we were able to take the scientific research that's published in international journals to a level that could be written about more as a textbook for new graduates or professionals who are new to this area of practice. A whole myriad of emotions, and I think the key thing is that people have different experiences of the diagnosis itself. So I have a PhD student right now working with parents at this stage looking at their decision making around interventions. So I think they come to that point with vastly different prior experience. Some people have had good information from a paediatrician or the professionals, and others have had very little information. So, you know, where they start at is often at quite different points. But, you know, I guess there are some questions that come up all the time. One of the key things is, you know, what do we do now? And the biggest issue, I think, is that there is a myriad of interventions out there, and it's very difficult for parents to wade through what's available, make sense of it, and to decide what's right for them and their child and their family. So the internet, there's the number of hits on sites, if you put autism and intervention in now, is in the millions. So it's very difficult for them to decipher the amount of information that's there. So that's a really big issue. And then I think the other really big issue is then working out what sites to trust, what information to trust, and what's reliable. And just because something's worked for another parent who's written on an online blog or you know, a Facebook site or whatever, this has been the answer for my child, doesn't mean it will be the answer for their child. So kind of weighing up that vast array of information with what's right for their child, their family, their situation, their financial status, the other little people that might be in the family, how much time they can spend, whether they want intervention that's at home or at a centre, you know, all of those things, very, very complex. The Commonwealth Government is trying really very significantly at the moment to conduit that information through a couple of very good websites, and to provide a service called the Autism Advisors, which are now in each state, where parents, once they have a diagnosis, can go to an advisor via phone interaction, typically, and those advisors can then put them in touch with services in that state or in that location. So that's made a difference. There is also a very good website called the Raising Children's Network website, which has some evidence-based information about interventions. So there are lots of attempts to make this piece of the journey easier for parents, but it's still a very overwhelming time.
Starry-eyed, once I get you up there, I'll be holding you so near. You may hear angels cheer, 'cause we're together.